leadership skills. That's what Richard Sterling said I lacked when he slid my promotion application back across his desk like a rejected loan document. I'm Marcus Thompson, 48 years old, and I just watched 15 years of dedication get dismissed in under 5 minutes. Sterling barely glanced at the folder containing my safety certifications, production metrics, and the incident reports showing how I'd personally saved Apex Manufacturing millions in downtime costs. The Boeing defense contract renewal recommendations I'd written, the training protocols that became company standard across all facilities. Marcus, Sterling said, already typing another email before I'd even left his chair. I appreciate your technical expertise, but management requires a different skill set. Leadership presence, strategic thinking. I'd been running contingency plans for production emergencies while he attended seminars on workplace synergy. I maintained every safety protocol that kept our $50 million Boeing contract active. But I nodded and kept my mouth shut. Understood. Thanks for the feedback. Good man. The quarterly reports need your review by Friday. That was it. 15 years condensed into busy work assignments while he moved on to more important things. I walked past the corner office with production floor views that should have had my name on it. Got in my truck and made a decision that would flip everything upside down. I pulled out my phone and deleted every emergency contact number. Then I drove home at exactly 5 p.m. for the first time in months. Let me back up and explain how I got to this point. After 12 years in the Air Force handling logistics for aircraft maintenance, I thought corporate life would be straightforward. Do good work, solve problems, advance based on merit. Wrong. When I started at Apex in 2009, the production floor was hemorrhaging money. The previous operations coordinator had quit during a federal safety audit, taking all procedural knowledge with him. No documentation, no handover protocols, just chaos. Assembly lines running at 60% capacity, Boeing threatening contract cancellation, and nobody knew how to fix the automated calibration systems. I spent 6 months rebuilding everything from scratch. Stayed until midnight reverse engineering safety protocols, created documentation that actually made sense, established relationships with floor supervisors who'd been ignored by management for years. The production efficiency improvements I implemented became the template for all Apex facilities nationwide. Sterling arrived 3 years later with an MBA from Northwestern and ideas about optimization that sounded impressive in PowerPoint but fell apart on the factory floor. He never bothered learning the systems I'd built. Why would he? I handled all the technical problems while he focused on corporate visibility. My son Danny was 8 when I started at Apex. His mother Sarah had died from cancer the year before, leaving me with medical bills that still show up in my mailbox and a kid who needed stability more than anything. Weekend overtime shifts meant extra money for Danny's baseball league and college fund contributions, but it also meant missing games and camping trips we'd planned. Dad works a lot, Danny would tell his friends when they asked why I wasn't at Saturday practices. He wasn't complaining, just stating facts. But hearing it from an 8-year-old cuts different than hearing it from your boss. The morning after Sterling's rejection, I arrived at exactly 8 a.m. instead of my usual 6:30. No early briefing preparation, no production line checks, no overnight issue reviews. When the first shift supervisor came looking for me about a calibration drift on line 2, I sent him to engineering. But you always handle these things, Marcus. Sterling advised me to focus on my core responsibilities. That's a technical issue for the engineering department. Pete Walsh from Quality Control stopped by around 10 a.m. with the same confused expression everyone was wearing. Did you see the Boeing inspection schedule changes? Yeah, forwarded it to Diana in engineering. He waited for more. When nothing came, he shifted his weight like he was standing on hot concrete. So you're not coordinating the prep work? I pulled up Sterling's email from 6 months ago about staying in my lane. According to management guidance, inspection coordination falls under engineering oversight. I'm just operations support. By lunch, the production floor was running differently. Not broken, exactly, but lacking the invisible coordination that kept everything synchronized. Small problems that I normally caught before they escalated were getting passed between departments. The automated systems that required daily parameter adjustments were running on yesterday's settings. At 5 p.m. sharp, I packed up and left. No staying late to prep tomorrow's production runs. No weekend system checks. Danny was shooting baskets in the driveway when I pulled up. Dad, you're early. Decided my time was valuable, son. Figured I'd spend more of it with you. His face lit up like Christmas morning. Can we finally work on the carburetor rebuild? You've been promising for months. Absolutely. Tomorrow's Saturday. We'll spend the whole morning on it. For the first time in years, I turned off my work phone during dinner. We talked about his upcoming senior year college applications and whether he wanted to study mechanical engineering like his old man or try something completely different. That night I slept deeper than I had in months. No 3 a.m. calls about equipment failures or emergency system resets, just silence. Friday morning brought the first real cracks in the system. I arrived at 8 a.m. to find Sterling's assistant hovering by my desk with papers clutched against her chest. Marcus, thank goodness. We've got a situation with the Boeing compliance team. They moved up their inspection to Monday and nobody can locate the updated safety protocols. I opened my coffee and checked my computer screen. Section 12 of the operations manual covers all current safety compliance documentation. We looked at that. It's 300 pages of technical specifications. Without someone who knows the actual implementation procedures, engineering should be able to walk through any specific questions. She stared at me like I'd suggested performing surgery with a wrench. But you always coordinate these inspections. You know exactly what they're looking for. Sterling made it clear that I should focus on my assigned responsibilities. Inspection coordination isn't in my job description. The phone started ringing before she left my desk. Production supervisors calling about equipment calibrations that weren't matching yesterday's output specs. Quality control asking about material specifications for the new Boeing order modifications. Engineering requesting clarification on safety protocol updates they couldn't interpret from the documentation. Each call got the same response. That's outside my scope. Try engineering or check with your department supervisor, or the information is in the manual. By 10 a.m., Diana Foster from engineering appeared at my workstation looking like she hadn't slept. Marcus, I need help with the Line 3 calibration settings. The automated system is showing error codes that aren't in any manual we can find. I pulled up the diagnostic screen. Error code 4729 minus temperature compensation drift in the precision assembly module. Simple fix that required adjusting 3 parameters in a specific sequence, something I'd done dozens of times. But instead of fixing it, I printed the technical specifications and handed them to her. Page 84.7 through 85.2 covers error code interpretation. Follow the sequential adjustment protocol in Appendix R. Diana's face went pale. That'll take hours to implement correctly. The Boeing inspection team specifically requested to see Line 3 operational efficiency. Better get started then. What I didn't tell her was that Line 3's calibration system had a quirk that wasn't documented anywhere. The temperature sensors read 2 degrees high after the morning warm-up cycle, which meant the automated adjustments overcorrected unless you manually offset the baseline. I discovered this through trial and error 8 years ago and just compensated for it automatically. But that knowledge wasn't in any manual. It lived in my head, accumulated through years of troubleshooting equipment that engineering had installed but never fully understood. The weekend arrived with my phone buzzing constantly. Production issues that normally got resolved with a quick call were escalating into full department meetings. I ignored every call and spent Saturday morning with Danny rebuilding his carburetor like I'd promised. This is complicated, Danny said, holding up a fuel mixture screw covered in carbon deposits. Everything's complicated until you understand how the parts work together, I told him. Each component has a specific function, but the real magic happens when they synchronize. We cleaned each piece methodically, Danny asking questions about compression ratios and fuel delivery systems. Teaching him reminded me why I'd chosen engineering in the first place. The satisfaction of understanding how things work and making them work better. Sunday afternoon, my phone showed 67 missed calls. I listened to exactly one voicemail before deleting the rest. Marcus, this is Pete Walsh. Line 2 is completely down. The main assembly module crashed during overnight production, and we can't get the restart sequence to work. Boeing team arrives tomorrow morning for their inspection. Call me back immediately. I didn't call back Monday morning. I arrived at precisely 8 a.m. to find the parking lot buzzing with activity. Sterling's BMW was parked crooked across 2 spaces. 3 vehicles I didn't recognize sat near the visitor entrance, including a government-plated sedan that probably belonged to the Boeing compliance team. Inside, the atmosphere felt electric with contained panic. Supervisors huddled in urgent conversations. Engineering staff rushed between departments carrying laptops and thick binders. The production floor, visible through the office windows, showed Line 2 standing completely idle while workers clustered around the main assembly station. Sterling emerged from the conference room looking like he'd been awake for 72 hours straight. His usual crisp shirt was wrinkled, tie loosened, hair disheveled in a way that suggested repeated hand-running. Marcus, he said, relief flooding his voice. Emergency meeting, conference room, right now. I gathered a notebook and pen, walking unhurriedly to the conference room where Sterling sat with Howard Brennan, our CEO, and 2 men in dark suits. Official badges clipped to their pockets identified them as federal compliance inspectors. Gentlemen, Brennan said as I entered, this is Marcus Thompson, our senior operations coordinator. The older inspector nodded grimly. Mr. Thompson, I'm Colonel Martinez from Boeing's compliance division. We're experiencing some concerns about your facility's operational readiness. What specific concerns, Colonel? Line 2 has been non-operational for 36 hours. Line 3 is running at 47% efficiency. Your safety compliance documentation appears incomplete, and frankly, none of your engineering staff seems capable of addressing these issues. Sterling jumped in quickly. Marcus has been focusing on other priorities this week. But he's here now to resolve everything. I looked directly at Colonel Martinez. What's the timeline for resolution? Boeing's contract renewal decision happens Wednesday. If these production issues aren't resolved and we can't verify operational compliance, the defense contract gets suspended pending full audit. How much is the contract worth annually? $50 million. Plus it covers 200 jobs at this facility. Brennan leaned forward. Marcus, what do you need to get everything operational? I checked my watch. Line 2 requires a complete system restart following the emergency shutdown protocol. Line 3 needs calibration adjustments for the temperature compensation variables. Both procedures are documented. Our engineering team tried following the documentation, Sterling said. They couldn't make it work. The procedures require someone familiar with the equipment's operational characteristics, I replied carefully. Colonel Martinez studied me. Mr. Thompson, are you the only person here who can perform these procedures? I'm the person with the most experience with these specific systems. The room went silent except for the hum of the air conditioning system. Through the conference room windows, I could see production workers standing around idle equipment, waiting for someone to tell them what to do next. Brennan stood up abruptly. Gentlemen, could you give us a few minutes? Marcus, my office. Now, his corner office overlooked the entire production facility. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see workers gathered around the idle Line 2 equipment, supervisors gesturing at diagnostic screens, and engineering staff running between stations with clipboards and laptops. Sit down, Brennan said, closing the door behind us. I'm going to be direct. This Boeing situation is about to cost us everything. What's really going on here? I settled into the chair across from his desk. Sterling rejected my promotion application last Tuesday, said I lacked leadership skills. And now you're demonstrating those leadership skills by letting the company burn down. I'm focusing on my assigned responsibilities, like he suggested. Brennan walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back. Marcus, I've been watching your work for years, though apparently not closely enough. Every major production improvement in the last decade has your fingerprints on it. The safety protocols that passed our last 3 federal audits. The efficiency modifications that saved us $2 million annually. The equipment maintenance procedures that prevented the catastrophic failures we were having before you got here. He turned back to face me. I should have promoted you years ago. That's my failure, not Sterling's. Sterling's my direct supervisor. Chain of command matters. Fair point. But chain of command works both ways. I'm now giving you a direct order. Fix this Boeing situation, and then we'll discuss your future here. I checked my watch. Them, 9:47 a.m. What exactly are you offering? Operations director position, reporting directly to me, full authority over production systems across all facilities. 40% salary, increase effective immediately. Before I could respond, his desk phone rang. He picked it up, listened for 30 seconds, then hung up with a grimace. Line 3 just shut down completely. Boeing team is threatening to leave if we can't demonstrate operational capability within 2 hours. I stood up. I'll get both lines operational within 90 minutes, and my offer, let me think about it over the weekend. Marcus, we don't have until the weekend. I need your answer now. I walked to his window and looked down at the production floor. 23 workers standing around idle equipment, wondering if they'd have jobs next week. Pete Walsh arguing with an engineering supervisor about restart procedures. Diana Foster staring at a diagnostic screen like it was written in ancient Greek. These weren't just employees to me, they were people I'd worked alongside for 15 years. Tommy Rodriguez on line 2 had a daughter starting college next month. Janae Kim in quality control was supporting her elderly parents. Steve Matthews, the floor supervisor, had been with Apex longer than anyone except Brennan himself. I'll take the position, I said, with 2 conditions. Brennan raised his eyebrows. Go ahead. First, I hire my own team. 3 positions with full authority over production systems, quality control, and safety compliance. Done. And the second, Sterling stays in his current role. He's good at client relations and contract negotiations. He just doesn't understand operations. This clearly surprised Brennan after what he did to you. Replacing him doesn't solve the structural problems that created this situation. Besides, I don't want my first management decision to look like revenge. Brennan smiled for the first time since I'd walked into his office, smart and mature. Sterling reports operational issues through your office from now on. I headed for the door. I'll get the lines running. Then we can discuss implementation details. The production floor felt different when I walked onto it. Conversations stopped. Workers turned to watch. Tommy Rodriguez approached me with relief written across his face. Marcus, thank God. Nobody could figure out what's wrong with line 2. We followed every procedure in the manual, but nothing worked. I pulled up the diagnostic interface on the main control panel. Error cascade starting with a temperature sensor malfunction, triggering automatic shutdowns across 3 subsystems. The restart sequence required resetting each system in a specific order, with 90-second intervals between each step to prevent voltage spikes. Tommy hit the main power reset, wait for the green light, then initialize the temperature monitoring system. While he worked through the sequence, I moved to line 3 where Diana was still staring at readouts that made perfect sense to me but looked like chaos to someone without years of hands-on experience. The calibration is drifting because the morning warm-up cycle runs the sensors hot, I explained, adjusting 3 parameters on the control screen. You need to offset the baseline by 2 degrees for the first 4 hours of each shift. That's not in any documentation we have. I know. I discovered it through trial and error about 8 years ago, just compensated for it automatically. Within 45 minutes, both production lines were running at full capacity. The automated systems hummed with their normal rhythms. Quality control metrics showed green across all monitoring stations. Workers returned to their stations with visible relief. Colonel Martinez found me completing the final system checks. Impressive turnaround. Mr. Thompson, mind if I ask what the actual problems were? Equipment personality quirks that develop over years of operation. Each system has documented procedures, but the real-world implementation requires understanding how the components interact under different conditions. He nodded thoughtfully. In the military, we call people like you force multipliers, one person who makes everyone around them more effective. He handed me a business card. Boeing's always looking for that kind of expertise. If you ever consider a change of scenery, I pocketed the card without looking at it. Appreciate that, Colonel? The Boeing inspection concluded at 3 p.m. with full operational compliance certification. Contract renewal approved pending final paperwork review. $50 million secured, 200 jobs protected. Sterling found me in the break room afterward, pouring coffee from the industrial-sized pot that had been brewing since 6 a.m. That was exceptional work, Marcus. The Boeing team was impressed. Just doing my job. He shifted uncomfortably. About last Tuesday. The promotion discussion, I may have miscalculated your value to operations. You made the decision you thought was right based on the information you had. Still, I owe you an apology. I looked at him directly. What you owe me is better communication going forward. I report to Brennan now, but we still need to coordinate effectively. The announcement went out company-wide the next morning. Operations Director, direct report to CEO, full authority over production systems and safety compliance across all Apex facilities. My phone buzzed with congratulations from floor workers, surprised messages from management types who'd barely acknowledged me before, and meeting requests from department heads who suddenly wanted my input on everything. Pete Walsh knocked on my new office door around 10 a.m. The corner office with production floor views that I'd walked past for years was finally mine, complete with my nameplate and a direct phone line to Brennan. So you're officially my boss now, Pete asked, settling into the chair across from my desk. Technically, yes. Problem with that? Are you kidding? You've been running things for years anyway. At least now it's official. The transition felt natural in ways I hadn't expected. Workers who'd always come to me with problems continued doing so, except now I had authority to actually implement solutions instead of working around bureaucratic obstacles. The first change I made was promoting Tommy Rodriguez to assistant floor supervisor. He'd been doing the job unofficially for 3 years without the title or pay. You sure about this, Marcus? Tommy asked when I called him into the office. I don't have management training or anything. You've been managing line 2 problems better than anyone with an MBA degree. The promotion just makes it official. Within 2 weeks, I'd hired Janet Kim as Quality Control Coordinator and brought in Steve Matthews as Safety Compliance Manager. All 3 were people who'd been undervalued by previous management, passed over for advancement despite proving themselves daily on the production floor. The changes showed immediate results. Equipment downtime dropped 35% in the first month. Safety incident reports fell to 0. Production efficiency metrics hit levels we hadn't seen since 2018. More importantly, worker satisfaction scores improved dramatically. Sterling and I developed a functional professional relationship. He handled client presentations and contract negotiations while I managed operations. We weren't friends, but we were effective. During monthly management meetings, he'd defer operational questions to me instead of attempting answers he didn't understand. Marcus has the technical expertise became his standard response. It wasn't grudging admiration, exactly, but it was acknowledgement. 3 months after the Boeing crisis, Colonel Martinez called personally to discuss expanding our defense contract to include precision components for the new F-35 maintenance program. The contract value doubled to $100 million annually. Mr. Thompson, He said during our video conference, Boeing specifically requested Apex for this expansion based on the operational excellence we observed during our inspection. Your team's safety protocols and production consistency are exactly what we need for critical defense components. The expansion meant hiring 150 additional workers and opening a second production facility. It meant job security for everyone at Apex and opportunities for advancement that hadn't existed before. Danny's senior year brought college acceptance letters and scholarship offers. His grades had improved significantly since I started coming home at regular hours instead of working until midnight every night. Dad, I got into state for mechanical engineering. He announced one evening, waving an acceptance letter. Full academic scholarship. That's outstanding, son. You earned every bit of it. I want to be like you. Someone who actually makes things work instead of just talking about making them work. 6 months into my new role, the company-wide employee satisfaction survey showed the highest scores in Apex's 40-year history. The anonymous comments section included dozens of variations on the same theme. Finally have management that understands what we actually do and leadership that earned their position through competence, not politics. Brennan shared the results during an all-hands meeting, specifically calling out the production improvements and safety record that had attracted additional defense contracts. When he mentioned my promotion and the team I'd built, the entire production floor started applauding. Not polite corporate clapping, but genuine appreciation from people who'd seen their working conditions improve dramatically. The most satisfying moment came during the annual performance review cycle. I implemented a new evaluation system that measured actual contribution instead of visibility metrics. Workers who'd been overlooked for years suddenly found themselves eligible for advancement based on competence and results rather than office politics. Sterling participated in these reviews without complaint. He'd found his niche handling client relations and contract negotiations, areas where his MBA training actually applied. The adversarial dynamic between us had evolved into something more like division of labor. You know, he said during one of our weekly coordination meetings, I never understood how complex the production side actually was. The documentation makes it look straightforward, but the real-world implementation requires knowledge you can't get from manuals. Every system has personality quirks that develop over time. You learn them through experience, not textbooks. 1 year later, Apex received the Defense Department's Excellence in Manufacturing Award. The ceremony took place in Washington with representatives from Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and other major contractors. Brennan brought me as his guest, introducing me to industry leaders as the engineer who transformed our operations. During the reception, a Boeing executive approached me with a job offer that would have doubled my salary again and moved me to their corporate headquarters in Chicago. Thank you, but I'm staying at Apex. I told him, I've got a team here that I'm still building. What I didn't mention was that I'd found something more valuable than money. The satisfaction of creating a system where competence gets recognized and talented people don't get overlooked anymore. Danny graduates next month and plans to join Apex's engineering program after college. The cycle continues, but better this time. If you've ever felt invisible at work, despite carrying more than your share, here's what I learned. The skills that make you indispensable are the same ones that qualify you for leadership. Don't wait for others to recognize your value. Make it impossible to ignore. And when you finally get the authority you've earned, use it to make sure nobody else gets overlooked the way you did. Sometimes the best response to being undervalued isn't anger or revenge. It's demonstrating your worth so clearly that denying it becomes impossible, then building a system where talent can't be ignored regardless of how quietly it performs.